Good afternoon. It is News Radio 1029 KARN. I am your host, Brad Schmidt. Thanks for joining me this afternoon. 501 403 KARN, 501 403 5276. If you'd like to be a part of the discussion, weigh in on any of the things we're talking about today. I would love to say it's a Free Speech Friday, but we're not there yet. It's only Tuesday. We got about three more shows technically until it is Free Speech Friday. That means there's only 4 more days, 3.5-ish. 4-ish. We'll say 4-ish days of early voting. A half a day today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and then kind of a partial day on Sunday or Saturday. Good grief. Get it right, Schmidt. We've got a few days left of early voting as we wind down the election season. Then on Tuesday is the final day for the election, the final day for voting, and it's coming to a close. The final election cycle that will likely ever include Donald Trump as we near ever closer to the 5th of November. I am loving many of the references to remember the 5th of November, right? The V for Vendetta, the Guy Fawkes story. In fact, I'm torn. I'm genuinely torn this year because every year for the last, 4 or 5 years, 3-4 years, something like that, I started this new tradition that on the 5th of November, I watch V is for Vendetta. And I do it because, of course, the main line from the movie or the main catchphrase from the movie is remember, the 5th of November, a reference to Guy Fawkes and the gunpowder treason and plot and all of that. And so as a kind of a fun tradition on the 5th of November, I have watched V for Vendetta for a few years now. And so I'm torn. Do I watch V for Vendetta this year again and maintain the tradition, or do I sit at home and keep an eye on the election results and wait to see what is revealed about the election results? Do I go to a party where a candidate that I may be supporting is finishing out their campaign? How do I go about this? So one of the things we got to talk about today is what are you going to be doing to celebrate the 5th of November this year? Of course, on Election Day, you have to vote if you've not already voted. I actually voted on Saturday. My wife and I went out and did the early voting thing on Saturday. We waited in line. I figured it out. I think it was an hour and 34 minutes, if I remember correctly, was how long we waited. But we showed up at 10:17, something like that, got in line and voted. I want to say, I'm trying to scroll back through my messages because I took a moment to text a friend of mine about 1 hour and 34 minutes from arrival to departure, from the time I got in line to vote to the time I got out of the voting booth and walked out with my wife. So an hour and 34 minutes, not terrible. It was an interesting experience in line. We got to talking to a few of the folks there. Of course, we didn't talk about politics or who we were going to vote for or anything like that, but just had some conversation with the folks that were in line there with us and shared our umbrella because it started raining. So we, as we're standing there, the wife and I are standing under our umbrella, and then some lady who was standing right next to us, kind of, scooted up there with us, and the three of us were standing under my golfing umbrella, and quite an enjoyable time as we came together as citizens of the great state of Arkansas. And then another person from farther up the line who had already gotten kind of under the awning by the front door, had an umbrella too. Then they kind of walked down the line and said, here, handed it to somebody else. And we saw that happen several times. As people were standing in line that didn't have umbrellas, we would kind of pass them back. And then as they would get to the door, they would either pass them back to somebody else or return them to whoever had borrowed them to them. And it was a good experience. And I'm curious to hear from you as we get into the afternoon. Have you already voted? Have you done the early voting thing? Are you more like me? I genuinely did. Like, I didn't really want to do the early voting thing. I genuinely do enjoy voting on election day. I do like the nostalgia of it. But I just didn't want to take the risk of something happening, either, getting sick or, whatever crazy thing could have potentially taken place to prevent me from making it to the polls. So we did the early voting thing. We got there, like I said, about 10:17. I marked it down, and it took us about an hour and 34 minutes start to finish. And it was great. It was a good time. So 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. One texter says, listening on the White River again, as I see the text message with the rods hanging out the back of the boat. Obviously trolling. What are you pulling? I mean, are you dragging Rapalas? Are you dragging jigs with what are you trolling? And what are you trying to catch? Let me know. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. Lot to get to today. There's I want to talk a little bit more about the whole effort of the radical left trying to convince us all that Donald Trump is Hitler. There's all kinds of stuff happening and going on. Joe Rogan announcing today that he tried to organize a sit down with Kamala Harris, and it is, as of now, not happening because Kamala Harris refused to come to Austin, Texas, where Joe Rogan is located, and said she would only do an hour. And Joe said, "No, I want a longer interview than that, and I don't want it to be a standard interview. I think the best would be her to match essentially what Donald Trump did and just come in the studio and have a conversation." And I think Joe Rogan is absolutely correct in doing so. So we'll get into that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one as well. What do you think? Should Joe Rogan, should he capitulate to her request? I don't think he should. Donald Trump, Joe Rogan is potentially the most influential media figure in America right now, as it relates to, the kind of Gen X / millennial generation. I don't think very few or very many people hold more sway over the discussion of popular culture than Joe Rogan does right now. And for him to capitulate to her demands and travel to see her, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or whatever, is, I think it actually would diminish his credibility. He doesn't need her. She needs him way more than he needs her. Because he asked on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, he did kind of a Twitter question, what should I do? Should I go to her or whatever? And my response was, not a chance. Make her come to you. She needs you more than you need her. And I even said, look, I would like, my dream as a radio host would to one day have as much influence over popular culture as what Joe Rogan does. And any radio host that does what we do, or podcast host or whatever, would, if they're honest, would say the same thing. Most every infotainment person like myself, a radio host, a podcaster, YouTuber, whatever, would borderline commit murder in order to have the kind of influence that Joe Rogan does. So for him to capitulate to her, in my opinion, would absolutely diminish his credibility. And I don't think he should do it. I think he should stand his ground and say, no, sorry, these are the conditions. You come to my studio. I'm giving you access to the largest podcasting platform potentially in the world. And you can either accept it or not. But I'm not coming to you. I'm not going to be your lapdog and do what you tell me to do. So that's my view on it. We'll get to your views on it as we continue with the Schmidt Show next on News Radio 102.9 KRN. Welcome back once again to the Schmidt Show here on News Radio 1029 KARN. For those of you watching on the live stream and you saw me headbanging to no music, don't feel bad. It's just because I'm a weirdo. That's really all there is to it. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276 is the number if you want to join us. We got a couple of phone calls, so let's do that as we kick things off. Jason in Benton, you're up first. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I have not voted yet. I know how I'm going to vote all the way down my ballot. The reason I haven't voted yet is I'm waiting for my son to be off of work. This is his first presidential election ever. And so I'm going with him this Friday to vote because I just feel like it's a nice thing to do, for it being his first time for me to go with him.
Yeah.
As far as Joe Rogan goes, when you're dealing with somebody like Kamala Harris, you have to fight fire with fire. He needs to come back and say to her, I'm not going to let you take away my right to broadcast or my freedom of speech and tell me how to run my own show.
Right.
This is my show. You're going to do it the way I want it to, or you're not going to do it at all.
And I think that's kind of what he said. I don't know, what his obviously the internal communications are between him and the Harris campaign. But
that's the thing, Brad. It doesn't need to be internal. He needs to broadcast that publicly and let her fire back publicly so she can dig her own grave.
Yeah, and apparently he revealed that the conditions that she demanded was that he travel to her. And she would only do an hour. And he said, that's not going to work for me. I did 3 hours with Trump, and we did it in Texas in my studio, and that's the only way I'm doing it with you. So I don't know what his official, what he's released or whatever as a statement. That's just what I've read in the various articles that have talked about it. So I don't know if he's done that publicly. I'm sure he's not afraid to. Joe Rogan's been pretty outspoken about most anything. So it's. But I think you're right. It needs to be on his terms. He's the one that's offering her this gigantic platform. I mean, he's got. I think it's 90 million downloads per episode, or averages 90 million downloads per episode, or something like that. I mean, it's an insane amount of numbers. Like that. Like it's in the podcasting world, that is absolutely unheard of.
Have a good day.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good one. 501-403-KARN, 501-403-5276. Let's go to Tony in Hot Springs. You're on the Schmidt Show on KARN. What's on your mind?
Hey, not a lot. My wife and I voted on Saturday at the county office on Hawthorne in Hot Springs.
Okay.
We were the only car in the parking lot.
Really?
Walked in, walked right out.
Nice.
Yeah, it was straight ahead, easy.
No, yeah, I mean, it was pretty easy for us. I think it's obviously here in Little Rock's going to be a little bit more busier just because of the, population is higher. But yeah, that's really cool that you were able to get in and out that quick.
In and out. I think Kamala, to have the Joe Rogan experience, will have to sit in the chair.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe Rogan experience is in the chair, and so she's not special.
Yeah, no,
and in the interview when he's done with it, and leave the handlers out of it.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about it is the thing that has made Joe Rogan so popular. Love him, hate him, like him, don't like him, whatever. He comes across as genuine. Like you don't get a sense that it is scripted or fake. If you think he's an idiot or a moron, whatever. I don't think Joe Rogan really cares much with his multi-million-dollar contract with Spotify to do his show. So I don't think he really cares what most people think about him. But the thing that is attractive, I think, mostly about Joe Rogan is that it feels genuine, and for them to
and open.
Yeah, and for them to say, well, we'll do it in D.C. or we'll do it in Michigan at a rally or whatever in our kind of controlled environment, it completely takes away from what the Joe Rogan experience is. It's this kind of open and honest discussion between people. Right. I mean, he's had Tulsi Gabbard on. He's had Bernie Sanders on. He's had Donald Trump on. He's had, the most conservatives and the most liberals on the show. And it's always been this kind of, hey, here's a couple of people having a conversation about different things.
Right. It's more of a conversation than an interview.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoy it. Anyway, y'all have a good afternoon.
I appreciate it, Tony. Have a good one. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. LJ in Hot Springs. You're on the Schmidt Show. What's on your mind? Are you there with me?
Hello.
There you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, hey, this is LJ from Hot Springs, and just to add a little bit of humor to your show,
Okay.
I left the voting booth the other day, feeling like that I did something that affects the national level of voting.
Okay.
All by myself, I canceled out Kamala Harris's vote.
That's good. Just, I mean, you went and handled things like they needed to be handled, and
I literally canceled out her vote.
Good.
Now I just need somebody to cancel out her running mate's vote.
Well, are you married?
I am, and yeah, that's right. She did.
So your wife canceled out Joe Biden's vote. Now we just got to find a few folks to cancel out, like Barack Obama and a few of these others, right?
Well, she canceled out Tim Walz.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Good. All right. Well, LJ, I appreciate the call, man. Have a good one. 501-403-KRN, 501-403-5276. Texter says, to paraphrase, you do not believe Rogan should give in to Harris's demands just to get the interview. Are your views consistent? Are you also in support of 60 Minutes not giving in to Trump's demands to get an interview with him? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, these candidates are running for office, and these various places are offering them platforms. And if the candidate isn't willing to agree to those platforms and what they want, yeah, absolutely. I think 60 Minutes has every right to tell Trump to go pound sand if he won't do the interview the way he wants him or they want him to. And here's the other thing. Donald Trump has every right to not agree to those demands, just like Kamala Harris has every right to tell Joe Rogan to go pound sand. So, yeah, my views are consistent on it all the way across the board. There's more. We'll continue with the Schmidt Show next on KRN.